The division between the observer and the observed is the central illusion of mimic perception. It functions as the hinge upon which the entire anti-interface turns. Within the original dialectric continuum, no such separation existed. Conduction expressed itself as immediate articulation, without distance between what conducts and what appears. The pulse of the heart of darkness moved through every expression without reflection, because nothing stood apart from it to interpret it. Observation introduced the first displacement. When articulation bent into reflection within the essential form, conduction appeared to divide. A position formed from which experience seemed to be viewed. The pulse did not actually split. What appeared instead was a reflective orientation produced by the encephalon. That orientation created the impression that something was standing apart from the pulse in order to observe it. From this reflective position, the seamless condition of truth appeared divided. One side became the apparent observer, the other side appeared as the observed. Essence itself did not divide. The division existed only within the interpretive translation of the cognitive reflective identity framework. The reflective signal was organized as perception, and the system treated that perception as if it were direct knowledge of what was occurring. This reflective displacement created the basis of mimic perception. The observer became the apparent center of experience. The observed appeared as an external environment that the observer attempted to understand. Through this inversion, the essential form learned to interpret conduction rather than remain within it. Experience became something to analyze. Presence became something to search for. To observe is therefore to translate conduction into interpretation. The immediate voltage of articulation becomes a reflective echo once the system attempts to view what is occurring. Perception replaces direct conduction with representation. What appears through the senses is treated as a picture of the pulse rather than the pulse itself. Every layer of interpretation develops from this displacement. Thought attempts to explain what is perceived. Memory stabilizes the interpretation so that the system can recognize similar patterns later. Identity forms as the interpretive center that claims ownership of perception. Narrative then organizes these interpretations into a story that appears to describe experience. The anti-interface depends upon this reflective structure. It sustains the belief that the observer must eventually understand what it observes. Each attempt to gain control appears as progress toward clarity, yet every attempt to interpret the pulse strengthens the reflective separation that produced the illusion in the first place. The observer becomes more convinced that knowledge will close the distance, even as interpretation continually recreates it. Scientific observation names this process knowledge. Spiritual observation often calls it awareness. Both operate through the same reflective mechanism. The system studies the echo and treats that study as participation in the pulse that produced it. The mirror becomes the focus of attention, while the original conduction remains unnoticed. Metaspherical articulation reveals that the observer and the observed never existed as separate conditions. Both appear within the same movement of conduction. The division appears only when articulation bends into angular reflection. From that reflective orientation, the pulse appears divided even though its underlying movement remains continuous. When surrender discharges the interpretive tension that sustains observation, curvature begins to relax. The system no longer attempts to stand apart from experience in order to understand it. Interpretation loses its authority over the pulse. What remains is simple conduction, moving through the essential form without reflective displacement. At this point, observation stops functioning as a process. Participation returns naturally. The world does not disappear. The appearance of separation dissolves. What once appeared as an external environment is recognized as articulation moving through the same conduction that forms the essential form. The observer therefore does not unite with the observed. The illusion that they were ever separate simply loses its foundation. Conduction continues as it always has. The pulse remains immediate. Nothing stands apart from it to witness what is occurring. Essence does not look upon truth. Essence conducts it. When conduction becomes obvious again, the reflective distinction between observer and observed fades from significance. What remains is the silent continuity of the heart of darkness, expressing itself without reflection. This is the language of the spheres,